Welcome everybody, July 21st, another open source community huddle. Today we've got some pretty exciting updates, and perhaps way more excitingly, we have a fantastic guest who I'm honored to be introducing in just a few minutes. We're going to have a chat about his experience and his story as an engineering leader and his arc as a developer, and we'll be diving in just a minute. As always, this recording is going to be available on the YouTube and on the Slack community later today. So for those of you missing it, or for those with friends who want to see this, feel free to share the link with them later on. So we've got some great stuff to cover today. I'm going to be super brief with the community updates so we can get straight into making good use of time with our generous guest, Daniel, who's joined us here early in the morning with Zhang and I in California. After that, our product lead of DevLake, Louis, is going to walk us through our usual run through of the community retro, see what's the latest and greatest inside the DevLake repos. Then we're going to go through a quick update on the newest release. Lots of really good things to share with you guys. Lots of really powerful new features that have come out. After that, we'll open the floor for any kind of community questions for the latest release and other things like that. So Daniel, of course, you are welcome to stay through the whole thing,
Sure.
but otherwise we'll only keep you through part 2 here, and are very grateful for your time.
Yeah, of course.
So quick shout outs. As always, like to recognize the newest contributors to the repo. I'm not even going to try and pronounce either of these, but nonetheless, I believe Pranshu here is one of our new junior developer evangelists. So shout out to both of you guys for making your first successful commit, getting it merged. Always a big deal. We're always so happy to see new names popping up in the repo. So congrats to all of you guys. The other big updates, as I mentioned, the team has been hard at work going through the final QA, getting everything ready for version 0.12. Some insanely awesome updates in there. I'm certainly cheerleading that, not least of which is this new ability we've cooked in to be able to totally organize the way you're analyzing the data according to different team specifications. So now if you're looking to cluster together different things or sort out different teammates, all of that is possible, and Louis is going to go into the details on what exactly that looks like. So very cool. Of course, another thing you might have seen in Slack, I know many of you have been requesting new walkthroughs, new setup guides. We're constantly working on it. Our new junior developer evangelist program, we've got 5 absolute rockstar junior developer evangelists. They'll also be supporting this, but we've also released a new video this week to make life even easier. So if you're struggling or just want to check it out, that's 6 minutes. It's sitting in the Slack, it's sitting on YouTube. Go take a look. Last and not least, we have ApacheCon Asia coming up. That is going on next weekend. I'll be sharing the links next week on Slack. We have at least 2 of our team members giving large presentations there. I'll be giving one talk on the launch, growth, and management of DevLake. I think it'll be a really fun talk. And then another one of our teammates, Warren, is giving a talk. You won't want to miss either. We'll be sharing details on that so you can take a look. So without further ado, I want to be quick and speedy and get through that early stuff to jump right into the fun stuff. We're joined today by a really fantastic guest. Really honored to have his time. Very grateful for him waking up early in the morning to join us and to manage all of these crazy time zones. So Daniel Marashlian, I'll let him introduce himself in just a minute, but want to kind of give a little bit of cool background here. Daniel is a multi-time founder. He's got some exits under his belt. He's been a CTO of several organizations. I think he really is kind of a CTO's CTO in that regard, having a lot of proof points of really kind of building things from the ground up. He's also the CTO of a company right now, which is also in the GGV portfolio. GGV are one of our investors also, and we're so honored to have them on our cap table. Great folks to work with.
Yeah.
Great community of other founders that we love working with. So Daniel, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to
Of
stop the
course.
share here so it kicks over to our video.
Sure.
Welcome to the huddle, and thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I would love, if you're up for it, giving maybe a quick 1-minute spiel. Like, what's your background, what's your story, and what are you up to these days?
All right, 1 minute. Let's see. Classically trained engineer, computer science degree from University of Arizona. Shout out Wildcats. But then, got a job after college, got a master's degree while doing that. And then I was actually in Phoenix area, and then I wanted to move out of Phoenix. I moved to San Diego through various reasons and saw the kind of tech scene kind of growing here in 2007-ish, like a little right before the economic downturn. And when I moved out here, got a job, whatever, and then was kind of waiting for the opportunity when it was right to start a company, and I did, and kind of got addicted ever since. And so that's the super short version. Is plenty of tech startups, and some successes, some failures, and I think the reason is, or not the reason, but the idea there is, hey, go shoot for the moon, and if it doesn't work, no one to kill it. Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's really, really cool. And going back all the way to the beginning of your journey, Daniel, what was kind of your first foray into programming? Like, what was that like as you kind of discovered, hey, maybe I should explore this? Like,
sure.
future code's pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I remember the moment, actually. I was going into college. I started college in 2000. So it was like at the height of the .com boom. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, like every other high schooler in the world. And so I remember looking, I don't know if they still have it nowadays, but like the USA Today paper or something like that. And like on the top right, it's like #1, jobs where you make money. And it was like computer science, computer engineering. And I was like, all right, computer science, what's this thing? Let's go do it. I like computers, I like to play video games. And so I enrolled into that, and the rest was history. But I remember my first programming class, it was taught by, I forget her name, but she had a thick accent. And it was, literally learning a new language and concepts you've never learned before. And it was just so hard for that first month. And I should probably remember not only her name, but the TA's name. I remember it's just going to every session of the TA because I really wanted to learn this. And I remember just one day, it was talking around arrays. And one day it just like clicked. And it was like a beautiful minds moment. It's where it was like, dun, dun, dun. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like I finally get what this is. And ever since then, I found love.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's a common experience. There's some kind of early touch points, and then that kind of click moment where you suddenly grasp one concept nice and strong and dive right in afterwards. That's fantastic. And shout out to those TAs. And
yeah.
So I'm curious, Daniel, you've kind of gone through this pretty incredible arc, like everybody starting out as kind of someone kind of tinkering with code, and then going all the way up to where you find yourself today, being the CTO of a pretty large organization, and you've done it a few times.
Yeah.
I'm curious, if you were to kind of go back, to your earliest self, you're embarking on your first startup journey, or maybe you're giving advice to, a developer who's making that leap from someone that's competent with code to being a CTO. I'm curious, kind of what kinds of things would you say to them? Like, what advice would you have for a developer that's making that leap from just writing code to being someone leading others who write code?
Yeah, I would say probably two things. One, and this is just my style of leadership, is I always like to be on the battlefield with the engineers. Now, sometimes like when the team gets so big and there's a lot going on, I don't find myself too much time to be assigned tickets or whatnot. But being able to talk to them, being able to do code reviews and understand the architecture they're doing, and you hear these stories of all of these still like industry vets still that work at Google and Apple, and they can just walk into a room and just destroy anyone on the floor of their architecture. And so I think it's like keeping those skills relevant, design patterns, architectural patterns, and all that fun stuff. So I would say that's one, like never lose your skills, because you're the one that needs to ultimately make this decision. And if you don't understand, the ins and outs of a database system, and now you're the person that needs to make the, $10 million decision to change database systems, that could be bad. And then the other one is just really more on the soft skills side. And there's a lot of I don't know, groups or forums out there to help technologists like learn soft skills and leadership. One here local in San Diego, then I think they have a few other cities now, is called 7 CTOs. That was good. I was part of that for a while, and just really helps you understand, build your EQ up for leadership and other peers. And I would say the biggest lesson that I've learned along the years in leadership is just everyone wants something different. Even though everyone can be on the same path and goal, and everyone's going to be at the same place, the way you get there is different and the needs are different. And so understanding individuals as humans and having a human connection, not just employee number 23.
Absolutely. I think that's really great and practical advice. Certainly, I feel like it's something we share as far as at least how we're working too, which is cool to see.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Daniel. This is a question that I didn't send to you, so I apologize for that. But I know the way that you guys have built the product at Drata. It's kind of a very kind of systematic approach to operating through challenges. I get the sense that you and your team are all very kind of systematic people. And as you've grown, I'm curious kind of how you see the role of data in your organization and in your product development and in your engineering workflows. Like, how do you kind of marry that with some of these soft skills that you talk about, and how you're kind of planning things? Could be anything, right? There's so much in there, whether it's observability, whether it's performance, team, or system.
Sure.
How do you think?
I mean, data is everything. You go look at some of the most valuable companies in the world, and at its core, they're a data company. It's just insights and be able to move faster, therefore deliver your product better. So at Drata, we have a lot of numbers and metrics and data around developer efficiencies and the movement of the software development lifecycle to the data of our users as well. And and obviously on the front side of the go-to-market side, like all the numbers around sales and marketing, all that, customer success, the scorecards, all that fun stuff. But at the data layer of from the customers, I think how we think about it is, hey, the nuts and bolts, let's get data piping where we need to get it, whether it's to our warehouse or kind of reverse ETL out to these other tools that we use, so people can use insights. And once you get that going, it's like, all right, now it's time to build analytics and self-serve analytics and breed a culture. I don't know if that's the right word, but like create a data culture within the organization, and don't just rely on, hey, Daniel, or hey, Lior that runs our data practice. What's this? It's like, here's a dashboard. Here it is. Go get it yourself when you want to do it at 2 a.m. Don't wait for us. And so I think being able to make it self-serve and build a culture there of data within the company. And then once you have that, then you can start, I think, going up one level up the pyramid and start thinking about like ML models and training and industry scorecards. And if you're a company in this situation and you need a SOC 2 report or something, and these are the technologies you use, and this is the size of company you are, like, here's the path to success, because we've seen it 1,000 times already.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really well said, and I think speaks to a trend that we're seeing all over the place, right? Where people are realizing, like, hey, getting this data doesn't have to be scary, doesn't have to be bad. And in fact, a data-driven culture removes all of that kind of guesswork, all of that ambiguity, removes gut instinct from the equation in a way that lets gut instinct play the right role in the right places.
Yeah. I will say, though, it's to everyone out there, like, sure, there's ways to do it cheap on Apache open source projects and whatnot, but there's some really amazing software out there, and some of it is expensive. And so we're finding that too in the bill the data bill is pretty high. So I think it's, if you decide to dive in there and use some of these amazing SaaS tools out there, just make sure there's a budget for it and you're ready for it.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Make sure you're planning accordingly with the costs.
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious, Daniel, especially with the Drata journey, you guys have really kind of grown so fast. I imagine it's probably the quickest kind of trajectory you've been on.
Yes.
And I imagine that's presented, many challenges as you've grown, your engineering organization and the way that you're building the product. And I'm curious, kind of what have been some of like the biggest challenges that you've faced kind of growing so quickly, whether it's, the simple things, right? Like hiring, or whether it's kind of more kind of deep inside the process stuff. I'm curious what comes to mind as far as like what those phases look like and what were the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I mean, hiring is definitely number one. Not just a butt in a seat, but the right person to do the role for the business, and someone that, there's I've talked to how many Google, Netflix type engineers out there, right? And good for those companies that pay as well as they do. And then you have to go convince an engineer, hey, join this startup where your maybe upside is not liquid, but if you believe it is in the future. And I usually look at like a 4-year horizon. And so if you're that, I don't know, Netflix engineer and you make 500,000 a year all in, it's like, okay, over 4 years you'll make $2 million. And how, assuming that Drata goes on the trajectory and path that we want it to, you could make $4 million here, or whatever. It's all hypothesis there on the value of the futures. But so that's usually the story I paint for there. And some amazing engineers have bought in that story and they've been rewarded thus far. Yeah. So hiring one. The other one I would say, to be totally open, is where I think I made my biggest mistake, and we're starting to resolve it here, the end of this, like the second half of this year, is the platform team. So as like a lot of people grow teams, it's like, okay, hey, we need more people to build more product. And that's great. And so we have a really good, amazing product team and organization structure around that, and motions and ceremonies and the agile process to get stuff out fast. And we do, like we move extremely fast. What happened was when we were, 10, 20 of us on the R&D team, myself or our VPE or say some of the original core engineers, hey, we need to upgrade Nest.js, or we need to upgrade data, whatever platform level stuff, build a caching interface, like some of those platform level things, like we would just do it. But now that there's 150-ish of us on R&D, I can't just go spend 8 hours and write some caching interface anymore. So I think that's where I made a mistake for sure, and we're resolving that. We already have a platform team started up and looking to grow that throughout the rest of the year. And so like the individuals already on that team, I'm so excited to see what they're doing, and the roadmap for that team for the rest of the year is awesome. So
yeah, that's really insightful. That's really insightful. And I'm curious, Daniel, I know Hezhong and I also enjoyed listening to some other interviews you've done, and one thing that really stood out to us was, a comment you made about, it's hard to stay away from the keys, but sometimes you maybe have to. And I'm curious, for those in the audience and for future listeners of this, who are maybe engineers who have that aspiration to be a CTO, but have never really seen it up close. What does kind of a week in the life of a growth tech startup CTO look like?
Especially in a remote environment, just a lot of meetings. And absolutely. So I really keep a really organized calendar, and hopefully there's some method to understand what you're meeting on, so you can optimize the time or those efforts over time. And so I work with my EVP partner, and we color code and organize my calendar pretty well. And so every month we actually look, where am I spending my time? And I go, oh, you know what? Let's try to draw that back 10%, and let's focus more with the engineers or whatever it may be. So I would say that's one, is a lot of meetings, but it's not just meetings to meet, especially in this remote environment. I'm meeting with people, especially internally, to help them move forward. And I think that's really the end goal. Is how do I can't do what 100 people are doing. Everyone knows that. I'm the best engineer, right? Maybe 10, but not 100. And but the idea is, how do I empower and enable 100? And so every time there's something, I don't know, we're doing an integration with some, third-party tools, and we need like a dev account. So I'm in there and I'm signing up for that super quick. And here you go, boom, here's the keys, or making a Slack app or something like that. So it's like just any little thing where especially with us being in the security industry, like we follow all the best practices and we put our best foot forward there. So like it's like a least privilege model where most of the team doesn't have access to like create the administrative stuff. So whether it's me or my VP, like we just try to say, okay, where's anyone blocked, through the stand-up chain or just obviously through one-on-ones in Slack. Okay, boom, I'll get to that at 11:30. I'll get you that. So it's about like just moving everyone as forward as fast as possible. That's on just engineering, as you could imagine. I talk with a lot of everyone else on every other department, and obviously we have an amazing security and IT leads that take like 90+% of that off my plate, if not almost 100. So I think that's another key thing is, as you're small, you're going to be doing all the IT stuff yourself. That makes sense. As once we got to about 50 is where I saw, holy cow, this is killing my time, like just helping internally all the people just move as fast as possible, unrelated to engineering or IT stuff. And so then we actually brought on a CISO, and he took that off my plate. And then about 100 employees, even he was like, that's crazy, let's go hire an IT lead. And so we've been growing since. But that's been an amazing critical role that I've never had in my previous startups I've started, was IT and security leads. And we have wonderful partners here.
Absolutely. No, I feel like that's ultimately what it boils down to, right? Is like enablement, encouragement, and figuring out like how are you provisioning the right resources to the right places to keep things moving, and hopefully scale yourself so that you're not the log jam, which is always the challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
So the last question I have, Daniel, is of course here we're an open source community. And we're very obsessed with building open source technologies, of course. I feel like it's hard to build anything without at least having some touch points on open source in some way.
Okay.
And I'm curious kind of how you think about the role of open source in your career and perhaps in companies you've built or products, and what have been kind of your experiences with that?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a pull versus a push. I mean, I've pushed some open source projects, but more of like, hey, we had to build this cool thing and there's no like direct IP, but like, let's just open source it, whatever. If someone wants to grab it, they grab it. So just try to contribute to the community in that way. But more importantly would be definitely the pull. Like anyone in a modern, internet company would be foolish to say they don't use open source. We all we're talking on, isn't even the Mac system like open source? And I forget, like the operating system to all of the but then in the web world, from like Node or Apache or these programming languages to all the NPM packages out there that drive everything. We use Nest.js as an API framework. We're using React on the front end. So like the core, I would probably say 90% of, like if you took the entirety of Drata, from the operating system and kernels all the way up to our first party code, right? Like 9% is open source. Like how many millions of lines are on operating systems and programming languages? And so realizing that open source is so critical to everyone's pipeline. And then obviously we put our own flavor on it and make what Drata does. But yeah, open source is amazing and we love to contribute and participate there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was one of my biggest kind of surprises or epiphanies as I started my journey in open source, for sure, was realizing the extent to which it's the lifeblood of so many things that you might not even think if you're not deep in that space. I know Hajong messaged me earlier. He had one quick bonus question, Daniel, if you have 2 minutes.
Sure.
Hajong, if you're up for it, I'll pass the mic to you here, because I wanted to make sure you had that chance before we let Daniel go here.
Thank you, Maxim. And thanks, Daniel, for sharing your insights and experiences. And as a fellow CTO, there are so many interesting points you just shared. I wanted to dig deeper with you, but just one question that I'm personally really curious about, which is, as a co-founder and CTO, we really put the company growth as our top priorities, right? Like you mentioned, your job is even maybe 80% helping, 100 employees move faster.
Yeah.
But as on the personal growth side, are you setting aside some time for yourself? And is there any skill that you're trying to master for yourself right now?
Yeah, good point. Technologically, I wish I could a little bit more. There's definitely some new amazing software out there that I just haven't had time over the past 8-9 years to dive into, really around the data world. Data analysis has always been a forte of mine, but man, some things you can do now that would take 5-10 minutes used to take 5 months 10 years ago. So I think learning some of that, but sadly I don't have time for that. But I would say personally to me is would be I've taken Spanish for maybe 10 years of my life, and especially when I was a little younger, and to continue that journey and you can drop me off in the middle of Mexico and I'd be fine, but I'm definitely not having fluent conversation. So yeah, be able to get a little stronger and maybe not fluent, but being able to have like strong conversations in Spanish would be great.
Awesome.
Thank you, Daniel. Very inspirational.
Yeah.
And there's certainly no better place to be speaking Spanish than San Diego as well.
There you go.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Daniel. We really appreciate your time today, especially early in the morning. I really enjoyed getting the opportunity to chat with you a bit, and certainly our community, a thank you from all of us for sharing some of your story here. We're so glad to have had it, and thanks again.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Adios.
Adios, amigo. All right. Well, that was fantastic. Guys, I think hopefully we're going to be repeating this model pretty regularly, as you know. As we move forward, certainly feel free to make suggestions if there's someone you're curious to hear from, or maybe someone who you want to refer. All of the above are very welcome. We want to make sure that these huddles are not just about the ins and outs of DevLake, right, but that they cover some interesting things that can help you guys. Certainly one of my philosophies as the leader of our community here is that my number one goal is to help our community members level up. And if I'm helping you guys level up, inevitably you're going to help DevLake level up. So more of these, and as you know, we've got a couple more on deck that we'll be promoting and sharing in the future. As always, I'll buzz you guys on Slack. And if you have any questions you'd like us to ask the guest on your behalf, I'll do my best to weave them in to our agenda. But at least for now, we'll keep the format similar to this and not open it up for community questions in real time, just to be respectful of our guests' time and availability. So awesome. So next, we have another superstar, which is our friend Louis Zhang here. We're not going to be interviewing him, but he might be interviewing DevLake here with some dashboards, catching up on what's happening in the project. So the second I'll drop my screen share, Louis, so you can dive in. But yeah, we're going to review here, as we always do, a cruise through the dashboards, a cruise through some of the metrics. What's happening?
All right, thanks, Maxim. Okay. Oops, can you see my screen?
Perfect.
All right, so I'll be introducing the bi-weekly community retro. So as our a weekly huddle is actually a bi-weekly basis. So I've updated the data scope of this dashboard from last week to last 2 weeks. So now it's renamed to bi-weekly. Okay. So first we start from the issue, the community issues. We had 48 issues created in the last 2 weeks, and 8 out of them were created from the community, which is 16.7%, and we have one first-time issue reporter, CMFG. Yep. As for the issue response rate, it's actually quite good. 87%, 0.5% of the issues had been responded. Yeah, so only this one. I'll dig deeper into it, see why it's not responded. Yeah. And as for the average response time, so it's 4.6 hours, which is quite good. Because our SLA is 1 day. So yeah. Thank you guys for like the hard work to make this come true. Yeah. Secondly is the community PRs. We had 80 PRs created last 2 weeks, and 14 out of them were created from the community, and which is like 70%. And we have 2 first-time contributors, which like Maxim has introduced at the beginning of the session. Yeah, but I'll like just shout out again. Pranshu, Raj, and PHC, lots of B. Thank you for your PRs. And among the 14 PRs, 8 have already been merged. Because we're under like QA for the version 0.12 release, so it's a bit slow for us to like merge PRs lately. And we're trying to like get all the PRs reviewed and merged and in this version, so that it will be included in the next release. Yeah. As for the average time to merge, it's 0.4 days. Yeah, which is also not bad. And as for the PR contributions by contributors, we have like 7 contributors contributing those 14 PRs, average like 2 PRs from those contributors. And yeah, thank you all for your contribution. All right, that's a brief introduction for the last 2 weeks community growth, and I'll jump into the next agenda, which is the release updates.
Awesome.
So yeah, I have my yeah. So we've done code freeze for version 0.12. and it's testing in progress, and it's estimated to initiate Apache release voting next Monday. As for the next version, version 0.13, so it's in the planning stage, and we'll initiate a thread at the dev mailing list, and listing all features and the reported issues that we're about to tackle in the next release. And also feel free to post your thoughts on features for the next release. Yeah, and we'll share the link to the thread after we created the version 0.13 planning discussion. Yeah. All right, that's the updates for Apache DevLake releases. And I'll pass the mic back to Maxim.
Awesome. Thanks, Louis. Yeah, so big release, guys. I think there's a lot worth taking a close look at. Zhang and I actually put out some fresh documentation to cover some of the new capabilities. You'll certainly want to take a closer look and familiarize yourself with what's new, how it works. Definitely pay close attention to team config. I think there's a lot of exciting capability and possibilities in there. So I'll be very curious for all of you to take a explore of that. and see if you have any ideas. And certainly, as always, do what you guys do best, which is go digging for, bugs, issues. Make sure you're putting them up on GitHub and sharing them. Or if you're getting stuck, ask questions in the Slack. That's always tremendously, tremendously helpful. So I believe that really covers the core of today's agenda. We went through some quick updates, right? Shared with you guys what's coming next as far as future speakers. We had an awesome conversation here with our first guest, Daniel Marashlian. As I mentioned, next weekend, the ApacheCon Asia program will all be running with some exciting talks happening from many talented people. Two of which are, of course, the DevLake team, myself and Warren. So I'll be sharing the links for that to promote and hopefully for you guys to attend. So with that, we'll open the floor here for questions and discussion. I see Shabam in the audience there. You have a question, raised your hand, so I'll pull you up here. How are you doing, Shabam? Good to see you as always.
Hello, Maxim. So I have two questions to Louis. So my first question is it possible, like I was running, creating a pipeline on Minikube. So the pipeline just took about like 2 hours and it just timed out. So is it possible, like, so is it a bug or like something? Because it was like my third pipeline which I created. The first two pipelines were like successful, but the third pipeline took way longer time than expected. And my second question is, when we create a pipeline, so we have to put the when we if we fork the repo, so can we put our username or we have to put the original the name of the author, like supposedly like it's a Minikube, so we have to put in repository owner name Kubernetes, or if I put my username if I fork the repo.
All right, Shubham. I think I got your first question. So you created like multiple pipelines and some succeeded and some failed, right?
Yeah, the one pipeline like took a way longer time, like 2 hours, and it just timed out. So is it a bug or like we can only create like limited pipelines?
We can create. We support multiple pipelines, and there might be varieties of reasons for pipeline to fail. So the first one is that maybe you've reached the rate limit of the GitHub API, or maybe there's like network errors during the data collection, and why it failed, and or there might be other
guys, I suggest that we actually take a look at your log, Shubham, because there are, like Louis said, there are too many reasons that could cause this. So I think this is a case-by-case scenario. If you can share us with your logs, then maybe we can figure out what's happening there.
Actually, yeah, I was watching the logs, but the logs were like the data was collecting like super slowly, and like it took around like 2 hours because I was doing this on AWS server. So like it took so I just like left around, so it took around like 2 hours, and then there was a like connection timeout from the DevLake. So I have not like really downloaded the logs or like took a screenshot, but so I don't have like right now.
So if you keep seeing logs coming out, then it's unlikely that it's the pipeline itself stuck. Maybe it's the data source that you're collecting is seeing a very heavy load and then just respond very very slowly, and then exceeded the timeout setting for DevLake pipeline, and then we time out. That's one possibility, but if we can reproduce it and then get the logs, then we can definitely take a deeper look into it.
Shubham, are you collecting?
Yes, I can share my screen right now, because right now I was also reproducing the error. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, that would be great if you're able to, Shabam.
Okay. Right, good. So you can see that. Okay. So I can't share because I don't have the enable button. So how could I?
Maybe we can arrange a like debug session for you
Yes.
after this workshop.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Just I would not clear up my logs. So my second question is like so we have to paste in the scenario like forked repo. So we have to paste our username, the original username who owns the repo, or we can also place our username in case of forked repo. Like if we fork a repo from Minikube, so we have to paste Kubernetes or Shubham like CMYK if I'm using my GitHub access token. You got the question right.
Sorry,
Uh,
what about the username part? Which step are
No,
you talking about?
Lake is a repository owned by Marico, or like right now it's owned by Apache, right?
Hmm.
So
yeah,
if I fork a repo,
yeah,
so there
it's
is the
under your
which ask a username and the repository name, right? So in the username, can we place my username? Like if I fork the repo, then I also own the repo, right? And I'm using I could also place my username.
So if I understand this correctly, Shubham, you're trying to collect the GitHub repository, and then you were wondering if you can collect a repository that's not under your username on GitHub. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. If as long as the repository is public, then any personal access token could work.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Shubham. And we're happy to schedule a debug session together with you to take a look at the pipeline issue. Let's follow up in Slack.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Shubham. And what we can do, I think it'll be helpful. We'll schedule a debug session.
So should I?
Yeah, so we'll schedule a debug session, Shubham, and then we'll pre-invite some of the others in the community, or at least make that open for them to join if they're struggling with a similar challenge. Because I imagine this is something others might have questions about, or at least want insights into. The next question here, I see a question from Sanskar. So let me just do this here. So, all right. So the next question is from Sanskar. Oh, it's the answer here. Thanks, Sanskar, for catching me. So Sanskar just provided a community answer here. So he said, if you want to collect data from your forked repo, then it would be your username. And if you want to collect data from original repo, then it would be the original username. So that's a good answer there, Sanskar. Thanks for jumping in. There were some good detailed questions there. Certainly for all of you in the audience here, if you have similar challenges or questions, don't hesitate to send us a note on Slack. Shubham will coordinate with you and Hajong and probably Joshua will lead that. We'll get that debug session sorted out and we'll make that kind of a semi-open invite for community members to join in and listen in if it's helpful for them. And then we'll record the relevant part of that and share it with the community as a resource there. Then Prasurja sharing something. Interesting link, sivo.com. I'll have to take a look at that for myself and see what it's about. But awesome. I think that covers all of our topics today. So thanks all of you as always for joining us. Really fun session today. I certainly enjoyed this one plenty, getting the opportunity to chat with our guests and to see our team and community as always. So as usual, Hajong, Louis, and I will hang out here on the link for just another couple minutes in case there's any final questions or discussions. Make ourselves available. But otherwise, we'll see you on the Slack as always. We'll see you on our next huddle. August 2nd is that one. As you know, we don't meet every week. We meet every other week. So next week, there will not be any reason for you to set your alarms and wake up early or stay up late, at least not for DevLake. And we'll be sharing updates as we always do on Slack. In the meantime, make sure to explore version 0.12. Lots of great stuff in there that I'm excited for you guys to sink your teeth into and share your own insights, questions, challenges. Otherwise, we will see you guys soon. Thank you as always.